Okay, this is going to be a tutorial on an inverse head and shoulders pattern along with an AB equals CD pattern. So this is the 4-hour chart, and this is February 22nd, 2011. And as we know, we have an inverse head and shoulders pattern here, with the left shoulder here, the head here, and the right shoulder here, and the neckline here. Now it's not considered a head and shoulders pattern until price closes above the neckline. What it is considered at this particular point is an inverse head and shoulders pattern forming. So one thing I'd like to take a notice of is the RSX setting 5. When price came down, you could notice that the RSX was way oversold here. And once it flipped back up, that gave us the indication that that was it for the down move. Now, one thing I wanted to point out, I've already pointed out that we have this head and shoulders pattern here, and let's find the target on that. I just used the crosshair tool, and I bring it down to the low, and I drag it up to the neckline, which is 265 pips. And you'll see the second set of numbers that tells me that. So there's 265 pips between the low and the neckline. So then I just take the crosshair again, and I take it from the neckline up to 265 pips. And that is right about 39.53. So I'm going to put a line at 39.53. And I'm going to make that blue to represent the head and shoulders colors, and I'm going to increase the size a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to name that HS target. Okay, so that's our head and shoulders target. If price closes above this neckline, then that'll be the target. Now, one other thing I'd like to point out that's going on in this particular 4-hour chart is an AB equals CD pattern. And I'm just going to move this here so we can see. I'm going to just pull this down here so we can see better. So if we fib from the low, the most recent low, to the most recent high, we'll see that price came down and tested the 61.8% retracement. Now, also I wanted to mention on a head and shoulders pattern, it's best if the right shoulder's formed on a retracement level. And the same with an AB equals CD pattern. So we have A here, B here, and C here. So let's go ahead and label it A, B, and C. So what this ends up being then is a head and shoulders pattern with an AB equals CD formation. Okay, so our C falls right on the right shoulder, which is also on the 61.8% retracement. That's a really good sign there that the longs will continue. So what we have is an A, a rally, and a pullback. B is the rally, C is the pullback, and D, we'll have to find our target, which is D. So A, B, C to the upside, inverse head and shoulders pattern forming, indicating an up move. So I want to be buying dips, which I did enter this trade off of a 15-minute chart at 36.55, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. So now that we have our ABC formation, we need to find out where D will be. So let's remove these fibs, and let's use the Fibonacci expansion tool. Insert Fibonacci expansion. And let's fib from this most recent low to the high, and pull this leg down to the low, which is our C. Okay. So now what we have is our target. On an AB equals CD pattern, the ultimate target is the FE100. So let's label this ABCD target. Let's just label it D. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is that when you trade this pattern, you want to try to get in on it. A lot of times what I do is I'll enter the trade down here and I'll take profits along the way, and maybe re-enter the trade at different points according to the lower time frames. But I initially see this AB equals CD forming on the 4-hour chart, so I'll drop down to the smaller time frame charts to find my entries. So our AB equals CD target is up here at 38.16, and the Head and Shoulders target is up here at 39.54. So that's what we're going for. Now this is a 4-hour chart, so there'll be a lot of ups and downs within this area, which is where I will drop to the smaller time frames and look for those same setups for entries on the smaller time frames. Now each of these FE levels are potential target areas because the actual final D target is not always met. A lot of times you'll only see a 61.8 target met. So a lot of times, you know, this D target isn't met. So that's why you want to concentrate on taking target, profits along the way, whether you stay in the trade and take partial profits or you take profits and re-enter the trade according to this 4-hour AB equals CD target on a smaller time frame. So let's look at this 15-minute chart and why I entered this trade. This happened in the middle of the night. I wasn't up in the middle of the night. Okay, here is a 30-minute chart. And what we have here is another instance of what we just saw. I entered this trade at 36.55, and the reason I didn't enter it down here is because I wasn't quite sure if we were going to have a deeper retracement to the 50 EMA on the 4-hour chart. The only thing that told me that this was a good time to enter was once price came down here, bounced back up, and closed back above this trend line here. This was a previous trend line that I had drawn, and price closed back above it. It told me that this trend line was going to hold to go ahead and enter. Yes, I could have gotten a better entry down here right on the 38.2% retracement, which is where the right shoulder now lies. Okay, but at the time, it's real, since we were under the trend line, hadn't closed under it, but we were under the trend line. I wasn't quite sure if we're going to close under the trend line, then I could have a further decline and possibly even test the 50 EMA on the 4-hour. So that's why I waited to see what was going to happen here, and once we closed back above the trend line, then I went ahead and entered the trade. This formed an inverse Head and Shoulders, okay, off the 38.2 retracement. So we have a left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder, and up here is the neckline. Okay, so now we need to find a 15-minute target on this inverse Head and Shoulders pattern. So we use the crosshairs and we take it from the low up to the neckline, which is about 177 pips. So let's take the crosshair again from the neckline up 177 pips. And that's right at 38.78, which happens to be the target on my trend line indicator here. So right about here, and let's just label this inverse target or Head and Shoulders target. It's easier to do it like that. Now, one other thing that we have here, just like we have on the 4-hour chart, is an ABC to the upside. Okay, so let's remove this fib level here. Okay, And let's go Insert, Fibonacci Expansion, grab the Fib Expansion tool, fib from the most recent low to high, and bring leg C up to this recent low here. So now what we have is our ABC pattern, ABC, and our target on this AB equals CD pattern is the ultimate target is the 100 FE at 38.13. So let's label that D and target, and that's what we're after. Now, as I stated before, this Head and Shoulders, this inverse is not technically an inverse until we have a close above the trend line, the neckline here. But it is an inverse forming. Okay? Now, as far as our AB equals CD trade, if price was, since we made a low here, okay, and we bounced, and we went up quite a bit, if price closes below here on a 30-minute chart, that's where I'll exit the trade. As far as, actually I'm up 19 pips now, so I'll move my stop to break even, which I'm going to do right now at 36.55. And I'll also take some position off so that I can book some profits. It never hurts to have some profits in your pocket when you get some. So that's how I usually trade, is take some profits, move the stop up, and go from there. But when I first entered this trade, before I was able to move my stop to break even and take some profits, my stop loss would be a 30-minute close below this low here, below C. Okay, so let's label this A, B, and C. Now what I'll do is, I know that I have this goes here. I know that my D target is here at 38.13, and I know my Head and Shoulders target is 38.76. Now, Head and Shoulders targets aren't always right on par, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set an alert to alert me when price comes up here to around the FE 61.8 at 37.45, so that I can look at price action and decide, do I want to take my profits now? Actually, I'll set an alert for here, the 37.03, and then also the 37.24 I'll be watching, and the 37.45, to maybe take profits there and wait for another pattern to occur on a smaller time frame, maybe a 15-minute or a 5-minute, to re-enter the trade, to work my way back up. See, what I'm doing is I'm on this 30-minute chart trading, working my way up to the 4-hour target. Okay, and if I take profit up here anywhere on the 30-minute, I'll look for another entry to keep working my way up to the 30-minute targets and eventually the 4-hour targets. So that's how I'll keep trading this, unless something comes out in the market that reverses the euro dollar, which we know can happen with all the economic troubles going on all over the world. Anything could happen. That's why when you are in profits, you want to, as soon as possible, book some profits, move stop to break even. That's the only way you're going to make it in this market right now. So this is just an example then of Head and Shoulders patterns tied in with the AB equals CD, and how to get your targets and how to trade them exactly. So this is February 22nd, 2011 tutorial.